California. I'm a SMD. I've been with this firm for about 12 to 13 years, and my home state is California, obviously. And I do have a business or business either offices or business partners in Texas, Virginia, Maryland, Florida, and Washington State. My background is in. Oh, I got to record. Are we on recording? Let me see. Are we on recording or not? Yes, we are recording. Okay. My background is electrical engineer, and I climbed the corporate ladder like many of us. Worked in the corporate for about 15 years until 2004. That's when I decided that I wanted to do something different. I was a little bit tired of the corporate grind. So in 2004, I decided to venture out to have my own business. And so from '04 to 2010, I had my own practice. I had a marketing firm, public relation firm. And in 2009, that's when I came in, got to know WFG, and I joined the company really to learn about how money works and financial knowledge. Now, I made it the corporate ladder. I did fairly well, climbed to become eventually a VP for a computer company. So people would ask me, Sam, why did you leave a good position at a corporate? And here are some of the reasons why I decided to have my own business. So in corporate, as most of us are familiar with, eventually we're going to get into that glass ceiling that we probably cannot learn that much anymore. Our income doesn't grow that much anymore. So I wanted to do something a little bit different. Wanted to better take care of my family's assets, money. Especially in 2008, we were hit with the mortgage crisis. So I wanted to learn how to better take care of our 401k and our investments. Working in corporate is great, but also is very demanding, especially as we get higher and higher in that corporate ladder. So I found myself working, easily 60 hours a week, and I simply did not have that balance, between my family and my career. That's what I wanted to do. And obviously, like most of us, I wanted to have the financial freedom, but also more importantly, also have the ability to control my own time. So those were the simple reasons why I decided to venture out. All right. So let's dive into today's quick disclaimer. This presentation is not intended to be a formal advice. It's strictly designed for educational purposes only and to bring awareness to individuals and families about the importance of financial literacy. Please consult your financial advisor for your specific situation. All right. Okay, so today, what are we going to be talking about? We are talking about college planning, and this is my agenda. First of all, I want to take everybody through the common myths and often mistakes, I call them. We're going to understand about the components of how we can get more grants. What are the qualifications? Next, we're going to show some real examples. We're going to go over some of the pros and cons of various plans that people use to fund college for their children. And last, I'm going to highlight a couple of key dates, a few key dates that we must remember. Okay, so let's dive in. The first is the common myth and mistakes. And I hear this all the time. One of the common comments that people would make, especially with young parents, they would say, well, my children are still too young. They're maybe just 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever they may be. So it's really too early to be thinking about planning. And that's really not true, because the younger we are, the younger our kids are, the more time we have to prepare, number one. But also, that means that if we have a young kid, they're still very young, that means that from the current age until eventually when they get to college, there's a lot more years, right? So there's a lot more inflation that we have to factor in. So the younger the child, the more costly it's going to be eventually when he or she gets to college because of that inflation. Second, the other side of the spectrum is, well, my kids are too old. It's too late. My kid is 17 or even 18 or 19. He or she's already in college. It's too late. but guess what, because of the financial aid is a yearly process. So even though that we maybe our children is 16, 17 years old, or even already in college, let's start thinking about what about their second year, third year, or even fourth year in college. What happens if they have a sibling who's a little bit younger? It's because the application, the FAFSA application, I'll go into that in a little bit more in depth as we go along. It needs to be applied every single year. The next, this is what I hear the most, especially here, us here in California. Most of us, because of the high cost of living, we tend to have higher wages here. And one of the most common things that I hear is that, oh, no way, there's no way for us to qualify. Our combined income is north of $200,000. Our income is too high. There's no way we'll qualify. So it all comes down to, well, your income is high, but it's relatively, right? It's compared to who? To somebody who makes 150,000. If you make a 200, sure, you're higher. But what if your the school that your child is attending, the average income in that class is say 300,000? Then it's all relative. Your $200,000 income compared to an average of 250 is low, correct? Also, we have to be aware that, sure, we may be, having high income currently, but what happened is a possibility to get a layoff, or maybe we want to take care of a family and take some time off, for example. That's all possible, right? So we can very well go from double income making $200,000 a year to a single income making 100,000, correct? So the next thing is that, well, my neighbor or my coworker didn't get any grants. So there's no way we could either, because knowing them, they probably make less money than myself, than us. So if they didn't qualify, there's no way I'm going to qualify. Knowing that if I'm their manager, for example, if they didn't qualify, how can I possibly qualify? Correct? But we got to remember, on the qualification, it has to do with not only the income, but also the household assets. And we'll dive into that more in depth as we go along. And this is another big one. Hey, public schools are good enough, and private school are just too expensive. I live in California. The UC system is pretty good already. So public school is good enough and it's cheaper. Well, guess what? If we plan accordingly, you may end up finding out that private university ends up, costing you less. And I'll show some examples as we go along. The next. We hear all the time, the neighbor, the banker, the financial advisor, saving plans for the best plan for college is the 529 plans. And 529s indeed has some benefit for college. And they have, they are strictly for college, but they also have some drawbacks. So, that we got to understand what the plan does. And I will show that shortly. And then, this is another big mistake, in the sense that we let our adult or teenager fill out the application when it's time to go to college. I see this very, very often. Most of us are immigrants. Our children, they're born here. The English is better than ours. And we may be too busy at the job. And all we do is tell our kids, hey, son, or daughter, go ahead and fill that application. Whatever you need, just let mom and dad know and we'll provide it to you. But guess what? Our children, they may understand English. They may understand how to fill the application. However, they certainly do not know how to plan the assets in the family. So make sure that we do not allow them to do it by themselves. It's good that they do it, but it's more important that we do it together. Fill out the application with your child. Okay, so that you know how to plan, whereas they can fill out by themselves, but you are the one doing the planning. Okay, so make sure that we understand some of these things that we come across, and we address this accordingly. But guess what? Another thing is that oftentimes is that we ask the neighbors, we ask the friends, and we ask everybody except the person who really knows. So please consult the experts, not your neighbors, not Google. You can use that as a reference, but definitely, it's like going to the doctor. If your child is sick, you're not going to ask your neighbor what to do. You're going to take them to the expert, which is the doctor, correct? So let's make sure we talk to the right people. Now, guess what? Out of all the myth and the mistake, guess which one is the biggest mistake? And the biggest mistake is this one. People simply fail to apply. People simply fail to apply for grants and financial aid. Okay, for whatever the reason, and that's simply put, don't do that. Okay, just give it the best try. And if you did not qualify, or if your child did not qualify, try again next year. Okay, so let's see what happens here. What happened? How come I cannot move my screen anymore? Whoops. What happens to my? How come? Excuse me 1 second. Okay. Oops. All right. Let's continue. I don't know why there is this little cursor. All right. So guess what? As I mentioned, the biggest mistake is people fail or forgot to apply. And guess what? According to statistics, okay, there is every year, I'm not just talking about last year, every single year, there's roughly $2.5 to $3 billion of college aid that go unclaimed. Can you imagine that? It says nearly 3 millions of all a billion in grants and scholarship are left on the table every single year. Okay. And they simply go unclaimed. So there's a lot of money to be had. It's just a matter of understanding the system and making the best of it for our family. Okay, so let's show some data for the for college cost, and this is between the total cost of attendance, which is between combining the tuition, the room and board, and the fees. So here are some of the costs in public universities. I live in California, so UC Berkeley, the UC system, they range between $30,000 to $35,000 per year total cost, depending on what UC, UC Berkeley, UCLA, those are the highest ones. And then you got the UC Riverside, the UC Irvine, the UC Santa Barbara, et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, you're looking at between anywhere from low 30s to high 30s annual costs, tuition, room and board, and fees. Okay. Now, some university, they may even charge a non-resident price, non-resident. So even though that this may be a public university, but if you live in Texas and your child goes to California, the first year, your child may be paying a high price as a non-resident college student. Okay. So this is the public university. Let's explore the private. Private obviously is going to be more expensive. Stanford, USC, the Harvard, Princeton, Cornell, MIT, SMUs. Normally speaking, you are going to be looking at price tags, $75,000 to north of $80,000 per year. Okay. Now, as everybody knows about the rule of 72, the rate of inflation for tuition and room and board is 6% approximately per year. Okay. So if you take rule of 72, that means that the cost would double every 12 years. At 6%, it doubles every 12 years. So the question becomes very, very simple, right? How many kids do we have, and when are they going to go to school? Because you have to factor in inflation. So even if your child is getting ready to go to school, and if you have 2 kids and they are pretty smart, they're going to private school, think about it, $75,000 per year per kid. That is $300,000 per child, 4 year of private school, $600,000 if you have 2 kids. And that is today's price tag, right? So that is obviously a very, very expensive ticket item, big financial burden in any home, correct? Now, the good news is that there are grants, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So let's show some data about that good news. So I have 2 universities. The first one is Princeton University, class of 2025. I just pulled this last week, so it's very, very current. So if your child were to attend this university this year, he or she will be paying $74,000. That's the sticker price, I should say, $74,000. But The university, Princeton University, according to their website, 60% of their undergrads would receive some sort of aid, financial aid, to help out with this price tag. Okay, so let's take a look. If you go to their website, this is what you will find. The first thing I want everybody to pay attention is on this chart, little table, you want to see that average grant. Grant means money that does not need to be paid back. In a nutshell, it's free money. Okay, so let's pay attention to that average grant. And the second thing that we want to pay attention to, do you see that here, including the 65 to 85,000, actually 100% qualified, which means that 100% of the cost of tuition would be paid through grants. Does not need to be paid back. And exactly, and on the left hand side, this is the income in the household. Okay, the combined adjusted gross income. So if you're making between $85,000 to $100,000 annual income in your household, you will receive that aid 100%, and that is an equivalent of $68,000. There may be a little more fee that you may have to pay, for example. So you get 100% tuition paid, 67% of room and board paid. Okay, so added together, how much do you actually receive? $68,000 per year per child. Now, if you're, making a slightly higher income, let's say you make between $140,000 to $160,000 household income, still the tuition will be 100% covered, and the average grant that you will receive is $57,000. So think about this. If the total sticker price is $74,000 and you receive $60,000, that means that it's, you're paying roughly $15,000 to $20,000. Wouldn't you agree? Okay, so this is Princeton University. Let's take a look at another school. This is in my neck of the woods in Stanford, California, also a private university. And when you go to the website under financial aid tab, this is the first thing that you will see. It says, we meet the full demonstrated need without loans, okay? Without loan, don't need to be paid back, for every admitted undergrad who qualifies for financial assistance, okay? So which means that anybody that qualifies, they will give that financial aid that does not need to be paid back. Let's take a look at Stanford. Same thing. We got that grant, the average grant, and also the net cost out of pocket for us, the family. So again, if we see between the incomes of, if the family makes income under $75,000, it's really you almost get it all. You only have to pay $4,100 per year, really. Okay. Now, most of us, granted, we probably don't make below 75. So let's say if we make $200,000, even if we make $200,000, we are still going to qualify for $43,000 per year, making our out of pocket $36,000. Isn't that wonderful? Save us a lot of money, right? Okay. So that is what the average people would get if they are in those income brackets, and that is our out of pocket. Okay. So people say, well, the private universities are more expensive. Is that correct? Well, it is correct in sticker price. But the out-of-pocket, if you do the math correctly, the out-of-pocket may not be higher than a public university. So please take that into consideration. Now, what are the types of financial aid that we come across? Let's remember the four types. One is the scholarship. 2 is the grants, 3 the student loans, and 4 the work study. For today, we are obviously going to focus more on the grant side. Grants are money that does not need to be paid back, and it's also the bulk of the financial aid that could be had. Okay, so what is scholarship? Okay, let's talk about the scholarship. The scholarship is really a merit base. What does that mean? It's usually, almost more than often than not, is based on academics. So that means that the child has very, very, outstanding achievements, very good grades, a lot of extracurricular, or maybe they have some special talents, maybe in sports, maybe in arts, maybe in whatever that may be, right? If you're Yo-Yo Ma, or if your child is going to be the next Yo-Yo Ma or Tiger Woods, sure, there's plenty of colleges that's going to offer for free. But then again, how many of us in today's call, we got 309 people on today's call. How many of us, believe that our child is going to be the next Tiger Wood, right? Okay, so that is very, very challenge to have to qualify for that full scholarship. Now, what if we don't qualify for the full scholarship? We may qualify for some scholarship, but typically speaking, the scholarship that are given are very, very low, in maybe a few $1,000s at best, maybe a few $1,000s at best, not a whole lot. Okay, now you are welcome to go to this website because it has a wealth of knowledge about guiding you and your family through preparing for financial aid. Now, the second type of financial aid is the need-based, or we, in simple term, grants. Okay, and that constitute grants, work studies, and loans. Work study, as it implies, is really work while they go to school, and usually the school would provide the child a part-time job at school, maybe at the library, maybe at the science lab, maybe as a TA, making very small money, not too much, maybe a couple of $1,000s per semester. So again, that is not very big. So a lot of people rely on loans. So for us today, we're really not going to focus on the loan side. We're really going to focus on grants, because at the end of the day, grants do not need to be paid back. And that makes a big difference in a typical family's household financially. So let's take a look at when we talk about the merit, good grades, good academic achievement, outstanding. There's a lot of university, especially good university, that actually, contrarily to popular belief, they actually do not give any scholarship because your child is outstanding. This is Brown University. It's an Ivy League university as well. It's a private, and it goes to say that eligibility for aids from the university, therefore, is based on financial need. Brown, as a member of the Ivy League, does not offer aid based on academic achievement, athletic ability, or any other forms of merit. So it tells you from their website that they provide the grants based on needs and not on academic or ability, special qualities that the child might have. And it goes to say also, that financial aid is renewable for all 4 undergraduate years, assuming eligibility continues. Student must reapply every year. So let's remember that the financial aid is not a freshman issue, but every single year that your child attends university, he or she, it is encouraged to apply, of course. All right, moving along. So, when we talk about financial aid, of course, it has the money. It needs to come from somewhere, right? So let's explore which ones are the richest colleges in America. Here, I'm going to show the 20 most the richest colleges in America. The richest, Harvard. Check this out. This is in billions. So in Harvard endowment is that the private university's financial account, in a nutshell. The endowment within Harvard is $33 billion, $33 billion in their account, okay, that they need to spend somehow. The second is Yale, UT, Stanford, Princeton, MIT, Texas A&M, UPenn, University of, I think this is Michigan, I want to think, Northwestern, Columbia, Notre Dame, UC, in California, University of Chicago, Duke. This is University of, I'm not sure, Washington University in St. Louis, I believe it is. Emory, Cornell in New York, University of Virginia, I think this is, and then Rice in Houston. So if you take a look, the endowment is a lot of money. Now, out of these 20 richest colleges, these are all private schools. So out of the 20, 15 are private universities, and 5 of them are public universities. So that means that tells us what? Obviously, private universities have a lot more money than public universities. The reality is that a lot of well-to-do families, their child, they probably go to private university. For example, George W. Bush, he went to Yale, for example, right? Bill Gates, he went to Harvard, even though he didn't graduate, but he went to Harvard. So, a lot of the donation for a well-to-do family, because they want to save taxes and they want to do good for society, what they do is that they donate money back to their alma mater, to their university, for tax deductions, right? So that is the reason why private university have a lot more money than public universities. And another reason is that public university rely more on the federal and state government for the grants. And as you know, federal and state, if they don't have a lot of money, then obviously, they can't give that much. So, let's not assume that private universities are more expensive. They are a sticker price, but because they have a lot more money to be given away, therefore, chances are the financial package will be a lot more attractive. All right. So let's talk about the need base, the grants. Okay. So number one, for the grants, which does not need to be paid back, we need to fill out two applications depending on what university our child is attending. If our child is attending a public university, then we only need the FAFSA. Okay, the FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Now, if he or she is attending a private university, then he or she would need, on top of the FAFSA, also the CSS profile. So again, FAFSA for public university, CSS for private university on top of the FAFSA. Okay, now there are two major sources of grants. I think I have a different page. Oh, it should be this one. Actually, it should be. It's the same thing. I just have a little transition here. So the major source of grants, if you see Pell Grants, this is from the federal government. Okay, it provides the maximum of $6,495 this year. That's the maximum that this grant would provide to a child. And there's another opportunity, federal supplemental education opportunity grant. The maximum is $4,000. So if you added this together, this was last year, I should change this. Roughly, you're going to get $10,000 from the federal government side. Okay. Now, what about the remaining? The remaining is going to come from the university endowments, as I mentioned. So private university, they have more money. They are able to give more of the grants to their applicants. Okay, so what factor impacts financial aid? Well, first of all, income in the family, how much mom and dad makes, the assets, the assets that we'll show in a little bit, the family size, how many kids are going to the college at any given year, if there's overlapping two kids going to school at the same time. So these are the four factors that determine that eligibility. All right, so the formula is very, very simple. The total cost of attendance, the total cost, which is the tuition plus room and board plus fees, that's called the total cost of attendance, minus our out-of-pocket. Our out-of-pocket is expressed in expected family contribution, our out-of-pocket. So the total cost minus our out-of-pocket equals how much money we can qualify for financial aid. So as you can see, the formula is very, very simple, right? We want to maximize financial need, right? The grants. So the formula is very simple. We want to minimize this. If we minimize this, then we maximize this, okay? So here is how do we minimize the EFC, the expected family contribution. The formula is simple in the sense that it's A plus B times a grade factor plus C and D. What are these A, B, C, Ds? A stands for the parent's income that we draw from our job, okay, or our business. B stands for the parent's assets. Maybe we have real estate, maybe we have stocks. Those are considered our assets for qualification. C represents student income. For example, my child goes to get a summer job at a McDonald's or an intern job, draws an income, that would be C. And then D would be assets under student's name. Okay, so A, B, C, D. So the goal obviously is to lower that EFC. Think about it. If EFC was 0, If EFC was zero, that means that we could qualify for the grant 100%, right? Of course, for most of us, we are not going to be able to get zero. However, we can reduce it to something relatively low so that we can qualify for the maximum grants that do not need to be paid back. Okay, so the interesting thing that I always come across is that why is it people don't apply? Why is it that people continue to make mistakes? Most of us can read English, and most of us have internet, and most of us know how to use Google. And this is exactly what you pull from Google. All you have to do is just go to Google and type in FOBSA download, and it's probably the first thing you're gonna find. FOBSA download, and that is the form. It's a form that is a different color every single year, but it's identical. It's almost, there may be some minor changes. Okay, so this is the most current as of June 2020. Okay, now it tells you black and white what assets will impact your eligibility. So let's take a look. It says right here, investment include, that means an asset that hurts your eligibility. Okay, investment include real estate. It tells you right there. Of course, it says do not include the home in which you live in. Okay, now if you have a primary resident, the value of the home or the equity in the home will not impact that eligibility. Of course, keep in mind that the FOBSA is for public universities, okay? So for most public university, your primary home does not impact eligibility. However, if you own rental properties, that will. The equity in the rental property will impact the eligibility. What else? Accounts under the child's name. Those are the UGMAs and the UTMAs, okay? Those are the Uniform Transfer to Minor Act and Uniform Gift to Minor Act. Okay, so these are in simple terms accounts that you open under your kid's name. Okay, so don't do that. Money market, mutual funds, CDs in the bank, stocks, stock options, bonds, other security. All this impact your eligibility in a negative way. Also, 529 plans. That's what I mentioned. 529 plans are good, is good for college. However, the biggest drawback about 529 plans is that it impacts that eligibility. So what assets do not impact eligibility? And it tells you black and white right there as well. Investments that do not include are your home that you live in. For public university, I might add again, the value of insurance, for example, the IULs, the VULs, the whole life, those do not. Retirement accounts, all these are retirement accounts. Pension funds, annuities, retirement annuities. So in a nutshell, retirement assets do not impact. So it tells you black and white. That's why I said that do not allow your children to fill the application on themselves. They can read it, but they obviously don't know how to plan it, correct? So we summarize it and we simply put the asset in two buckets. On the left, the includable buckets, assets that will hurt that eligibility, that impacts it. The CDs, the bank money, the 529s, the rental property, and the resident home with a little asterisk. Remember, if your child is attending a private university, then even that primary resident, the equity in it will impact the eligibility. So where can we put our money? In simple term, retirement assets, right? Our 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, annuities, our insurance plans, the IULs, the VULs, all of these assets do not impact that eligibility. So, where should we put our money if we're going to qualify for financial aid? Obviously, that is a trivial question. It had to be on the right-hand side. We should put more of our asset on the right-hand side, right? So let's take a look at actual example. If you go to Stanford's website, and you can do this with any university actually, okay? Let's go to Stanford, and I did this recently, really. All right, so let's assume that a typical household. Would you say that the typical household make $150,000? It's a decent household, yes? And let's say that this family makes $150,000 combined income. They have 150,000 saved up in their savings and CDs, okay, cash balance. They have $200,000 in their 401k, and they have 450,000 in other non-retirement assets, such as maybe real estate, maybe stocks, maybe mutual funds, etc. All right. So this is called, that $150,000 in the bank is an exposed asset. Also, that non-retirement investment is also another exposed asset. So based on Stanford's website, if this were a typical family situation, then the calculator would give you the estimate. So for the current academic year, the total cost of attendance in Stanford is $79,000. Based on this criteria of the family, Stanford would give $28,500 per year to the applicant, qualify for grants. The out-of-pocket for the family would be $47,000. Now, I'm going to keep everything except I'm going to make some minor modification to these two exposed assets. Same thing. I got $150,000 income, which I cannot change. I got my 401k, which I don't need to change. However, my money in the bank, I'm going to make some adjustment. I had 150. Now I reduce it to 35,000. And on my non-retirement asset used to be 450, and I moved 250 away. So what happens there? I reduce the bank money, right? So I reduce the exposed assets, and I also reduce the non-retirement assets, $250,000. Let's say that I had an IUL and I moved it there. So same student, same age, same year, same university, $79,000. But guess what? Because I made those two simple adjustments, guess what happens? Now, Stanford is going to give my child $56,600 instead of $28,500. And what is my out-of-pocket? $18,900. How big is the difference of saving $30,000 per year per child? That is a humongous difference over 4 years, or maybe over 8 years if we have two kids, right? So all I did is just make minor changes that can be done relatively easy, depending on how I plan. So the next few slides, I'm just going to show some example. These are all real story, people that we know, people that we help. Meet Lucy. Lucy is this nice looking young Lucy. She is the niece for our big leader Rocky She. She is Rocky's niece. She's very smart. Actually, this is her photo with President Obama. They had they were invited to the White House, and there's Lucy. Okay, so let's take a look at Lucy. Lucy went to the university, and the sticker price was, I think this is UPenn, I believe. Let's see how. So at that time she went to university in 2012. Okay, so the total cost $60,000, and the total aid package was $51,000. Guess how much did Lucy's family had to pay? $8,300. So can you imagine that, paying $8,000 versus $60,000? So this is year one in Lucy's college life. Fast forward the second year, the third, and the fourth year. Same thing with Lucy. You see that the tuition went up every single year from 60 to 62 to 65 to 67. But did you see that the aid package also went up? So for Lucy's family, it really stayed about the same. It went up a little bit, but it's all relative. This is Lucy's family. All in all, Lucy probably saved her family easily $200,000 in the course of 4 years. This is Lucy. This is another real example. This is from my great colleague, Jeffrey. Jeffrey's son is William. Okay, William got accepted to both Rice and SMU. He chose SMU. So this is William in 2018. The total cost of attendance is $74,000, almost $75,000. Okay, for SMU per year. The total award granted to Jeffrey's family, 42,000. Whoops, I need to charge really quick. Sorry about that. I should have done this. Okay, there we go. And how much is the out of pocket for Jeffrey's family? $28,000. So would you agree that $28,000 obviously is a lot lower than 74? But the point is $28,000 is almost cheaper than a public university without grants, correct? So for us to think that private universities are more expensive, they are sticker price, but the out of pocket is what matters. Okay, so the whole idea is understanding how it works. Some more example. This is Kevin. He lives in Boston. His daughter is also very, great achiever. 2014, UPenn, $44,000. This is Xuling. Her daughter, $32,000 per year in Cornell. And this is another colleague of us, 56,000. This is more recent, $56,000 in Cornell. Okay, for they live in North Carolina, by the way, for their child to attend Cornell. Now, let's understand the various plans, right? The first thing that we want to understand is the 529 plans, because 529s are essentially, strictly for college use. So there are advantages and disadvantages. So let's take a look at some of the advantages. So the 529 plans allow us to put large contributions if we had the money. Okay, so we can put more money into the account because we need to save faster. Say, for example, our child is already 14, 15 years old, then we need to play catch up, right? So we can put more money into the plan. Now, they grow tax deferred while the money is being invested. It grows tax deferred, and they do not pay tax when it's used for college expenses. So there are tax advantages. You don't have to pay tax on any gains as long as the money is for college. You have the control for the account, and you can transfer the unused portion of the account for your next child, or maybe for your grandchild, or maybe even for yourself. Maybe down the road when you retire, you want to go back to school. You can still use the account for yourself. Okay, so as long as it's for college, then the money can be used tax-free. These are the advantages. The disadvantages are that number one, 529 plans is only used for a single purpose, for education only, for education. You cannot say, well, can I pay for the apartment? Sorry. Can you buy a car? Sorry, cannot do it. Okay. Now, if you're going to use it for any other purpose, you'll be taxed, plus you will have to pay 10% penalty for the non-educational related use. Say you want to buy a car, sorry, you'll have to pay not only the tax, but also the penalty, okay? Typically speaking, 529s do not offer too many financial investment choices, so it's not as flexible, but the biggest impact, the biggest drawback or disadvantage for the 529 is that it simply disqualifies financial aid. Because think about it, it's just common sense. You go tell the college, hey, I want to apply for grants, and he's going to say, well, do you have any 529s? You say, yeah, I got about $200,000. Well, guess what? If you have $200,000, you go into the school, what do you think the school is going to tell you? Well, use your 529 first, right? So that is the biggest disadvantage, that it disqualifies for financial aid eligibility. Now, the law changed during the Trump administration. He made the changes in that the 529 in some states now can be used for K through 12 as well. Okay. In the past, before Trump made the change, it was only usable for college. You can only draw the benefits tax-free if it was used for high education, high-level education, which is college. Okay. Trump made it so that it can be funded. You can use it to fund, the K through 12, maybe private school for your child. However, that's a federal mandate. It's a federal law. And at the state level, not every state accepted that mandate, okay, or that law. So here, the blue are the states that do allow 529s to be used for, K through 12, whereas the orange are the states that do not allow. So if I live in California, I have a 529 plans, and I want to use it for, for private school in high school. Nope, can I use it? Can I use it? Okay, so those are some of the pros and cons and the compliance for the 529 plans. The next thing are understanding what if I were to use IRAs. Excuse me. All right, what if we use our retirement assets, for example, IRAs? Advantages that are IRAs, they can grow tax-free. We know that they are tax deductible and they can grow tax deferred, don't have to pay tax. And for Roth, if I had Roth IRAs, I can actually take the money before age 59 years old without penalties. Okay. Now, the IRS does allow us to take money without penalty and without having to wait until age 59. No penalty and no waiting if it is for higher education use. Okay. So if I want to use it for my son's college, that is okay. Okay. However, let's see, balance in retirement accounts are not considered in the federal. And also the advantage is that this account does not consider as a visible asset that impacts the age. It does not. So it's shelter assets. Okay. And obviously for IRAs, there's usually plenty of investment options. These are the advantages. What about disadvantages? Okay. So even if I have to take money out without penalty because it's for high college education, that money that I have taken out is considered my income for the year. So I had to add that money as my income. If I took out $20,000 from my IRA to pay for my child's college, that means that the income went up by $20,000. Okay, so let's understand that. The Roth IRA, there's no tax, but again, it counts as income. Okay, and the more income we pile on, obviously, it affects the eligibility for how much we can qualify. And another disadvantage about IRAs in particular is that they have limited contribution. So for most of us who our kids are not yet 18 years old, we're probably not 60 years yet. So 50 yet. We're not 50 years old yet. So we can only put $6,000 per year. If you're 50 or above, like me, we can put a maximum of $7,000 per year. So think about it. If my child is 14 years old, 4 years to go to school. If I can only put $7,000 in 4 years, how much is that? It's only $28,000. It won't allow me to put the money fast enough to pay for the college, right? So these are some of the disadvantages. Now, what about if we were to use life insurance plans to save for college? Well, now what depends on what type of life insurance, because not all life insurance plan will have cash values, right? So we're talking about utilizing life insurance with investment component, with savings, okay? And that could very well be VULs, okay, investing in mutual funds, or IULs, utilizing index strategies. So let's take a look at some of the advantage, and there's plenty. First of all, flexible funding. I can put very little, or I can put a lot. I can put 20, 30, 40, maybe even $50,000 per year if I wanted to. It grows tax deferred, no taxes. There is no market risk on the investment on the IUL, I might say. The VUL does have risk. IUL, no market risk. There is no tax that I need to pay via policy loans. No tax on withdrawal or on accessing my cash value. Obviously, being an insurance, it provides a death benefit. God forbid something happened to me. And the biggest benefit is that it does not affect financial aid qualification. Okay. Now, of course, there are some disadvantages. Number one, insurance plans are not designed for short term. Okay. So not suitable. Let's say that if I want to just open an account for 4 years for college, don't do it, because there's surrender charge if you cancel too early. Okay. So you also have to be healthy. So have to be good discipline, more for long-term investing. And along the way, we can use some of that money for our children's college expenses. So this is 7702 on the life insurance side. And what about a lot of people, say, well, I'm going to invest in real estate. And then if I have 2 kids, For every kid that eventually he or she goes to college, I'm going to sell one property for each child. A lot of my friends do that. Okay, buy one house for one kid, buy two houses for two kids. When they go to college, sell one accordingly. So let's take a look. Okay, there is my house. I'm going to sell it, or my rental property, I should say. Advantages. Well, it's a good savings vehicle. It is. Okay, it allows me to save with discipline. However, with a caveat, if we have a steady tenant, right? Because obviously, we want to use the rent to pay for the mortgage. So if we have a good steady tenant and the rental pays the expenses of the house itself, so it provides me positive cash flow. Also, obviously, we buy real estate with the hope that the price of that real estate would appreciate in value over time, right? So if I buy it when my child was 10 years old, hopefully by 18, that house value would have appreciated. Okay. Now on the appreciation, it is tax deferred, so I do not pay the tax on the appreciation. And if my child is still pretty young and I have positive cash flow, I can use the rental income to provide some cash flow before, prior to college years when I'm going to need to sell it, right? Now, what are some of the disadvantages though? Well, guess what? Can we always say that next year my child goes to school, so next year I'm going to sell the house? Well, the timing to sell, it may not be optimal. What happened if we were to face with 2008 mortgage crisis? Would you sell your house if you had to? If you had a choice? So timing is a big issue, right? When I'm going to sell, is it a good time to sell? Well, I don't know. I can't control that. What about if we have bad tenants? Don't pay the rent, make a mess out of the house, etc. Right? Typically speaking, rental property or real estate in general, the return tend to be lower, lower return on investment. And another big factor is that it disqualifies us from that the qualification, if you remember, right? It's a visible asset. It's a visible asset that hurts our eligibility. So now, let's take a look at a summary, the highest impact asset class to the lowest impact. So as we see, 529, the biggest impact is simply disqualify us, okay? Money in the bank, stocks and mutual funds, rental properties. And this category of investment instruments, they must be reported onto the FOBSA and the CSS profile when we apply. Let's continue. Non-qualified annuities, small business, primary home, retirement plans, all this do not need to be reported onto the FOBSA, but only onto the CSS for private universities. And also the 401ks, the IRAs, the Roth IRAs, they do not impact the financial aid, the expected family contribution. And of course, the insurance plans, these only the CSS profile. Typically speaking, they do not ask, but there are a few universities, private, that will ask and that may impact. So I have to check with the particular university. So we obviously want to shift assets or eliminate some of the assets up on top and shift them more toward the bottom. So here is the summary of the various savings plans for college for whether we can put money in the bank, stocks, real estates, okay? They are obviously not financial aid friendly because they impact us. Tax is not very good. They're not very tax efficient. There are no contribution limits, obviously. I can buy one house or 10 houses or buy, 10 shares of something of Tesla or 1,000 shares. So no limit. I can use it for anything, no legal protection if I get sued. Plans under our children's name impacts financial aid. No tax benefit except kiddie tax. There are some limitations on contribution. We can use it for whatever. And this is dangerous, though. This is very dangerous, though. Why? Because think about it. If you open an account under your child's name, okay, and then comes 18 years old, he turns 18, he or she can say, well, now I'm an adult, I can utilize whatever I want with this money. So what happened if you have $50,000 under his account? He said, I'm not going to go to school, college. I'm going to buy a Porsche. what can you say? He can very well say, this is my own money. There's nothing you can do about it because you don't have control over the account. Okay. Now, 529, not financial aid friendly. Tax benefit, yes, as long as it's used for college. The contribution, there's some limits, but usually it's pretty good. Utilized for college. And there's some legal protection if you get sued. 19 states would protect you. The insurance plans, okay, is probably more advantageous. And some states provide the legal protection, some states do not. Okay. And then this is not very common anymore, so I wouldn't be talking about this. The prepaid college plans, I wouldn't recommend this too much. All right. So to wrap things up, we are up on time. Let's tips for maximize financial aid. Again, I'm utilizing Jeffrey's data. Jeffrey's the father. He's my friend, and his son is William. So he goes, prepare for education, college planning as early as possible. It doesn't matter if they are just born, right? Because you want to prepare, you want to have as many years to compound as possible. Number one. Number two, make sure that you move the assets from the includable to the excludable bucket. At least you got to clean your assets at least 2 years prior to attending college, because you need to provide 2 years of tax return, okay, when it's time to apply. So when the child is 18 years old, to apply, they need to report the tax year for the parent 2 years prior. So 2 years before college. I guess this part I don't have to tell you because all of us are in WFG. Set up business, because business allow you to take expenses. You can reduce your income, right? Reduce taxes, reduce income. That's great. Don't open accounts under your kid's name. Encouraging kids to work, that's great, but for financial aid purposes, that is not your best friend. So if you want to encourage your child to work, maybe they can do volunteer work. Yes. Maybe they can teach at a, at a school, maybe become a tutor, not get paid, right? Because that way they get that opportunity to serve and an opportunity to learn how important, how valuable is to make money, how hard it is to make money, I should say, right? But don't make them work that is wage-based, because wage-based impacts that financial aid eligibility. Don't rush to pay off your house. Okay, don't rush. Keep your loans for a long time. I recently refinanced my home. Because I want to take the money out so that my equity is remaining low. Okay, and if y'all possible, reduce rental income, reduce having rental properties, or at least don't pay them. Don't pay them off. Keep refinance if you can. And then obviously with WFG, one of the great values is that soft skill, the leadership skills, the communication skills. Guess what? When William he got interviewed by a lot of the college counselor, and guess what? Jeffrey was a genius. Jeffrey would take William to the conventions, and over time he saw, the successful people. He learned about communication skills that helped him when he was being interviewed by the college counselors. So, develop your child's soft skills through WFG. That's wonderful. All right. So the last thing, a few key dates to remember. FAFSA is the application for public universities. CSS is for private university. And these are some of the important dates. October 1st, the FAFSA for the following year, when the kid is going to go to school, you can fill out the application. So October 1st is for the FAFSA for high school seniors. By December 1st, if they want to apply for early decision with the university, by December 1st, the early decision, that's for the for early decision given out. February is for the regular non-early decisions. And then February 1st, the early action applicant received their need-based financial information. And by March 31st, everybody else will receive their financial information, okay? So some of the things to remember. Well, the last thing I want to share with everybody is really some useful references. These are some of the websites that you can visit to learn more about how to save for college. And I will have the presentation sent over to our administrator, and the SMDs would have it, and it's up to them, how to share it with you based on your current status with our firm. That's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. I'm past 1 minute. I wanted to give a few minutes for Q&A. Feel free to do so. I'm going to stick around for a few minutes. Any questions, feel free to ask. Let me see. So, Maggie, let's see. Does non-qualified annuity impact? Yes. Very good question. Maggie K. Non-qualified annuity does impact financial aid. Okay, non-qualified means the money that is not earmarked for retirement, and that is with cash. If you were to invest in an annuity with cash, that will be considered a visible asset. So it does. What is the difference between living home and residence home? Okay, I don't know what living home means. I guess you mean principal resident, right? Your resident home usually is considered the primary home or the principal residence, the home that you live in, okay? Whereas the rental property will be the second home or investment property. Next, is Stanford private? Yes, it is. Stanford is a private university. What about the price what about the price of the house home? I don't quite understand that question. I guess for Roy Avidor, the question, I guess if you're asking, yeah, Stanford is private and the home equity will impact the financial aid, even your primary home. Is 529 exposed to market risk? Yes, it is. Of course, it depends on how you invest, right? If you put 529 in a very, very conservative investment, you may not be exposed so much. But what is the point? If you were to invest too conservative speaking, that means that you're not growing your money. So that is the catch-22 problem, right? The low investment return, low risk, but no return, right? Next, what is the impact of UGMA if it's a custodial account? Well, guess what? Depends. A lot of people say, well, I want to do an UGMA custodial because, the custodian means that the child, you're the custodian because they are underage, right? So that will still impact that eligibility for financial aid. Can you explain why refinance home? Why to keep it on? Okay, refinance home is very simple. For example, my house, I had about $300,000 left on the loan. My house, I bought it for $675,000. I had about $300,000 left in the mortgage. Okay. What I did is I refinanced and I cashed out almost $500,000. So now I owe the bank a lot more money. Why do I want to do that? Because I want to lower my equity. Remember, that real estate, they consider the equity, not the value of the home. In another word, it's the value, the market price of the home minus your loan. That is your equity. That is countable. Okay. Hopefully that answered the question. Wendy, could you use the 529 to pay for room and board? Yes, you can, as long as it's for the university. Yes, you can. Jack Zhang, can you share slide? Talk to your SMD, please, Jack. Maggie K, you're welcome. What do you mean by factor in the form? Okay, the factor means a grade factor, okay? And that is really variable because the grade factor, it matters on the class that is applying for that university that given year. So sometimes that grade factor could play in your favor. Sometimes that grade factor may not, because it depends on how many people did great on their SATs or got accepted with great academics to back things up. Next question. If a grandfather went to have a saving for education for a grandchild, what would you recommend? Yeah, people have all kind of thoughts, right? What if I have the 529 under the grandfather, or the money under my grandfather? Sure, you can do that. Sure, you can. But guess what? Say, for example, grandfather has a 529 plan. And grandfather, that does not impact the kids, right? And does not impact the parents either. But guess what? Let's say grandfather takes $20,000 from the 529 that he owns for the grandkid. That $20,000 is considered income to the applicant's family. So even though that it is shelter under the grandfather's name, however, it's counted as the income for the applicant's family. All right. Anything else? Well, I have a lot of questions. Only 5.64 and 529 savings is considered, okay? If the application, in the application, so their impact should be the same, correct? Oh, very good question. Rakesh, you must study it already. So depending on the size of your 529 plan, right? Because 5.64%, what happened if you have $200,000? What if you have $200,000 in your 529 plans? At 5.64, that's 5.64 of $200,000. That means that you disqualify yourself for $10,000. Next, can I sell my house to buy a new house instead of refinancing to save dollars if it's an old house? I don't know if I fully understand this question. Can I sell my house to buy a new house instead of refinancing to save dollars if it's an old house? I don't know if there is a straight answer for that, because that varies, right? For example, sure, you may say, you can sell your house, but when you sell your house, you have to pay a lot of fees, right? You have to fix the house up. You have to pay on the closing costs, the agent costs, and if you rent it out before, you have to pay for depreciation. And then when you buy the new house, the likelihood is that you probably buy a new current price, and that jacks up your property tax on your new property. So I would probably say that wouldn't work generally in general terms. Okay, so hopefully that answers. So this is I'm not sure how to this person's name, Mukisa. I don't know if I mispronounced your name. I apologize. All right, guys, I answered a few questions. Hopefully that was satisfactory. And we are out of time. I appreciate everybody for staying with me today. And look forward to having you guys on our call next Monday again with the next great topic. Thank you for listening in, and have everybody